Hello, this is Kyla from Hidden Gems Literary Emporium. Today we have Mr. Frank Gaertner, who is the author of Sally's Magic River. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, well, heck, thank you.
So Sally's Magic River was on display here at Hidden Gems, and we are officially sold out. This is our last copy, which is used for reviews. But of course, if you would like to come in and check it out, you're more than welcome to do so. Why don't we start by you just introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about your background and why you decided to write this book.
Well, all right. My name is H. Frank Gaertner. It's my pen name, I guess you'd say, but it's really my real name. My first name is actually Herbert, and I didn't think I liked that name, and so I changed it to Frank H., but it's actually H. Frank on my birth certificate. And now I'm very happy to be H. Frank Gaertner because it sounds cool. Anyway, I have written this book, so I tell myself. I don't remember writing this book. I mean, I remember writing it, but it doesn't gel with me that I wrote it. What happened is that I've had a long career. I'm 83 years old. So it's been a long time, and I wrote this book sometime before 2000. Well, what was it? Around 2000, maybe even before that. I don't remember when I started writing it. It doesn't really matter. It just is a thing that happened as a result of my wife and I know it was 1997. My wife and I took a trip down the Colorado River with three other people, 3 canoes, and we went down this river for 4 days, and it was a long trip down the Colorado from Palo Verde to Yuma, Arizona, and it was right when Hurricane Linda hit. And the hurricane came by just as we were camped out getting ready to go, and it was just a mess. But it cooled things off at least. Anyway, we had a wonderful trip down this river with all sorts of exciting things happen, which I could explain, but won't. And then we passed by these mountains called the Chocolate Mountains. And my wife, she got very excited. She thought, well, this was great. I'm going to write about this trip. And she started writing about a little girl called Linda, who was an Indian girl who lived in the area, and she lived by the Chocolate Mountains. And so it was called Linda and the Chocolate Mountains. And I thought that was great. And I thought her story was great. And she was going great guns on it. And she then got stuck, writer's block. And what happened next was she passed this to me and she said, "Oh, Frank, would you help me out with this?" And I said, "Oh, sure, I'd be glad to." And so what I ended up doing was writing a little paragraph for her that I thought would be very a good bridging paragraph and get her off her block. And she didn't like it, and she gave it back to me. And I read this little paragraph was so inspiring to me for some reason that I took it to work. And during lunch hour, I would just get on my keyboard and start typing away on it. My fingers took away. I mean, there was no outline to this thing. The whole process was totally magical in my mind. And I have no idea where it came from, how it came to be. It just happened. And the paragraph occurs pretty much right in the middle of the story. So that's how the story came to be. But now I recognize that what happened was, and why I'm so connected to it, is it's about a little girl who has an accident, and at the age of 10. So it's kind of a tragedy, really, certainly for her family. And I think this book is so inspirational, especially now. We've had this horrible pandemic, and so many people, so many children especially, have lost their parents or a parent. And so that goes along with my life. When I was 10, I had a tragedy happen to me. My father died, and it was a very dramatic thing because he died right in front of me as I was eating dinner. And so we got this, wonderful thing called post-traumatic stress. And it was a blessing, really, because what it did for me was that it created a mind that has the ability to create images, like movies running. And so I have this movie running in my mind of the events that happened on that day in 1948 that are just like they happened yesterday. And that's turned out to be a good thing, because now I use that visualizing process in my work. Also, it gave me an obsessive compulsive personality, which ended up giving me some kind of bad habits like drinking. So I had to finally give up booze. But now as a result of going through all of that, I have been blessed with a mind that is obsessive compulsive about useful stuff. And so it gives me focus, which I talk about in my book a lot. It also gave me a fearless kind of personality. I went through hell, and so I really am not pretty much afraid of anything. I mean, somebody could scare me, but my wife scares me all the time. She could, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, real fear. I don't have real fear. The other point is that because I was able to be focused on something, when I get onto something, I don't leave it until it's completed, which is, I think, also a good thing. At any rate, this book has a lot in it. It's not just a book about a girl, and it's not just about me. It's about life in general, I think. And one of the things that is, I think, valuable in it is getting to the point where you're able to picture things in the future, and then if they look good to you, it's not like the trying to change the future, or trying to change the past. We don't want to do that. That's a lot of wasted time. So what we want to do is live right now. And I do that. I'm really good at doing the next indicated thing right now. But I don't mind at all using my imagination to throw myself into the future, to live the future as if it's actually happening. So one of the things that I have done, which you'll think is crazy maybe, is that I've taken Sally and the Magic River and I have put it into my head as a movie. And I can see myself sitting in the theater watching my movie as it's been given the Academy Awards. So there I am. I'm who knows, maybe, doesn't matter. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. And that's kind of the thing is that's pretty much where the book goes, except to say that it follows many aspects of my life. So yeah, I had the tragedy at 10. I was sent to, my mother remarried, and she married a farmer who had was pioneer farming in the middle of the Arizona desert. And so I ended up with a bunch of strange animal friends, just like Sally does. I had kangaroo rats to play with and other things, rattlesnakes, all this kind of stuff. She doesn't have any of that, but she has animal friends. And also I was transported to a strange land. Well, so was she. And all of which my trials and tribulations, which she also has, led her to leading a magical life, which I have. I mean, those things that I have stuck in my head as visions, I call them vision quests, they've all turned out. The one that hasn't yet is me sitting in a theater watching my movie. But who knows? I'm 83. So what I do just to tell you, one of the really important things about this book is it also is in Audible form. And I use Audible all the time as my exercise. And it is a very easy exercise program, because all I do is I tell myself, I don't get to hear what happens next unless I'm running. So guess what? I don't get to happen next unless I'm running. I get my headset on, I stick in my, get on my iPhone, and I don't turn the iPhone off until I'm out the door. And then I start listening. And so I'm listening to Sally and the Magic River. I've done that many times. And I'm also listening to science books. I'm very much into quantum mechanics right now. And I also like many fictional books other than this. So I just say that as an easy way to get yourself in shape. So take it from me, an 83-year-old who's in great shape because he goes 6 to 8 miles a day. It's a wonderful thing. And I think that's the real value to my book. That bottom line is if you can really get into reading, which is important, and then listening to what you've read, which is, I think, even more important, because you get the mental pictures in a different way than you do just by reading. And that's it.
And another cool thing about what you said about Audible is that when you hear the narration, you can kind of see the movie, as you said, play out in your mind.
Yes.
Because when you're reading yourself, you're kind of hearing your voice, or maybe what you think. But when you're hearing a narrator, and before we started recording, you told me a little bit about your narrator and how amazing of a job she did giving each character their own voice.
Yes. Yeah, there's one voice in there that is really very comical and very hard to do. One of my characters is, her name is Raven, and she has a voice that's a cross between Steve Martin, Wild and Crazy Guys, and the Martin Short, the wedding planner in that movie. I think I forget the name of. Anyway, making a cross out of those two voices wouldn't be easy for anybody, but she does it perfectly, as she does all the other voices in my book. I would not have been able to find a better person than Rebecca Nemeth, and she just came out as a gift. The very first person I sought out turned out to be the perfect person, and that happens all the time to me. Is that if I'm on the right path, the right person at the right time always shows up.
Same. It's been the same way in our life, and with, not only with the bookstore, but just with anything, all of our community service efforts or any project that we want to do, it really happens like that. Another thing that you said, which is so interesting, because there was an artist who's having her exhibit here that we're working with. She's actually a quilter, and she's amazing. We interviewed her yesterday. She said the same exact thing you said. And then the author that we interviewed 3 days ago said the same exact thing that you said again, which was, you said that the story just came to you and you just started typing, and it was just kind of like a flow that you yourself did not put out. And so even yesterday, the quilter was saying that. She says sometimes she'll get a commission for a 12-foot quilt, and she's thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Then, it comes to her. The other author said the same thing. When I asked him, where'd you get the inspiration? His answer was, I really couldn't tell you. It just came to me. So I think that's the cool thing about
magical.
About arts in general, whether it's art, physical arts or literary arts. the best stories are you don't have to work so hard to think about what you're gonna write. It's kind of like a natural flow that comes out.
Yeah, I always heard you're supposed to write an outline for a story and all that stuff, and I didn't do any of that. I just got on there and did this on the keyboard, and it flowed out. And it because I was working on that little paragraph, it ended up in the middle of the story, and it went that way. I don't know how.
Wow. Have you always been a writer as a child and in your young adult life?
No, no. I did have a pretty good um, career as far as I went to Ventura College. It's a junior college, and while I was there, I was doing I was a music major, and I actually composed a piece for brass choir that actually got played. But then while I was doing that, I had to take a botany course to get my AA degree. And this botany teacher, I was really good at botany. So the teacher said, you know, you ought to try going on in school, because I had no idea that I was going to go any further than getting a 2-year degree. So I ended up applying for the University of Arizona, and I went there, and I got hooked up with this woman, an old woman, who was fascinated with the desert in Arizona. And so she took me on a little trip and out into the desert, and we started picking up samples. And we picked up samples, brought them back to the lab, and she said, okay, now you put these sticks and things that we've collected on this wet filter paper in these dishes and see what happens. And so what happened is that things started crawling off my pieces of wood and stuff. There were slime molds in the desert. Slime molds are molds, but they're more like animals, and they actually move, and they will go along eating things, and they are very interesting creatures. If you give them a track to follow on a plate, they'll move and follow that track perfectly. And there's a lot of work now going on with slime molds. Actually, I did my master's degree on that. So there I am. I'm not gonna go any further, but while I'm there, this fellow from the university, Purdue, comes and he gives a lecture on this protein called flagellin, which is the protein that is used by bacteria to make their flagella, which is the little whips they make to be able to run around. Anyway, what he did, he showed this this whole sequence of this protein, which was a brand new kind of technology that they had at the time. I mean, I'm old, so I'm going way back. DNA sequencing, that kind of thing is, you know, everybody does it now. Protein sequencing, most people don't even have to do anymore because they have nucleic acid sequences. Anyway, so he takes me to Purdue. He says, "Come on, Frank, you can have a fellowship and just do your work there, and you'll." So they had these programs where people could actually go to school and get educated without having to spend money, and we need to do that again. And so I went there, and I got my PhD, and I found out that I could actually take a bacterium that was a high temperature bacterium and smash it and extract from it all of the equipment that one needed to synthesize proteins. And I did one of the very first in vitro protein synthesis things. And so I graduated, and then I went on to do what they call a postdoc. And then I started learning about how enzymes could hook all together. And I found one that had 5 enzymes in a polypeptide chain. And doing that, I was working with yeast. And as a result of that, this fellow from the Salk Institute gives me a call as the president of the Salk Institute. Says, hey, I need a yeast geneticist. So would you come and help us out? And I said, oh, okay. So I went from I was a professor at the University of Tennessee at the time. I went from there to the Salk Institute, and I was there for a year and did some work there, making their, they call it an expression vector for yeast, and had the opportunity to start my own company. It was called Mycogen Corporation, and we made one of the very first genetically engineered organisms that was used. It was an organic version of a pesticide that was used. It's called Bacillus thuringiensis. BT is used all the time. We made it so that it could be made in huge quantities, and we ended up spraying it on thousands and thousands of acres. It was a successful product. And then we were bought out by a company, which I don't really want to talk about because they're not very nice. It's Dow Chemical. But anyway, I retired. And so then I started doing other things like writing. So it took me a while before I got to be a writer. That was the answer to your question.
Yeah, but you know, everything that we go through in our lives contribute in some way, shape, or form to where we're at now. Do you agree with that?
What was that?
I was asking if you agree with that statement.
Well, which what? I just lost the last.
That everything that we go through and experience in our lives contribute to where we're at right here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes. And so what I also know about all of that is you're going through these experiences. What if you think that you have an idea about something, you probably, well, a good chance you don't have a good idea about the thing. And the way you find out if you have a good idea about something is to notice whether or not you're having to haul out a hammer and a square peg and start trying to jam that square peg into a round hole. If that's the way it acts, then you probably don't want to be going the way you're trying to go. And what I've also learned is that if the doors start opening easily, that probably is a good indication. Hey, this might be a good track. So I'm on a good track right now. The doors have been opening one after the other for Sally's Magic River. And I don't know where it's going yet, but I'm excited.
And so are we. Let's talk about Sally's Magic River. So would you say that Sally is in some way, shape, or form a reflection of you?
I'm gonna turn my volume up. I'm having a little trouble here.
Okay, let me know when you're ready.
Oh, boy. This computer. You do. I don't even know what you've done here. My computer just did something terrible.
Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay. Click are you looking at the Zoom window right now?
I can see myself, but I can't turn this window I don't know what this window's for.
What does it say?
It says recent Zoom. It has Word file, probably photos.
Maybe can you exit out?
That's what I'm trying to do. Maybe this will get me out. No, that won't.
Is there an X at the top right of that window?
There should be.
There should be.
I keep clicking on it and nothing happens. Wow.
So the problem is you can see Zoom, but there's a window on top of it, right?
Maybe I can do this to it. No. It gives me maybe what I can do is just go back to this. Okay, I think I'm getting there.
Okay, take your time.
There we go.
Hi.
Ta-da! Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, yay. Okay, so Sally's Magic River. Would you say that Sally is in some way, shape, or form a reflection of you?
Okay, I still am having trouble, so let's go. I'm going to see if I can do this without my computer going nuts.
Let's see. And let me know if we need to end it and start back up.
No, I got it.
You sure?
I got it.
Okay, good. Okay. Would you say that Sally is in some ways, shape, or forms a reflection of you?
Is in some way what?
In some way, shape, or form, is Sally a reflection of who you are?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what about her friends? How did you come up with the premise for her friends and their names?
Well, because one of the things I had happened to me, like I said, was after my father died, I was transported to a strange land with quote unquote friends like her, a bunch of animal friends. These were my friends. I was miles away from anybody else. I was out in the middle of the desert. And so, yeah, there's similarity there. And as far as the other friends are concerned, the actual human friends, I guess I would say there are people in it. Like I have one of the friends has an accent that has a kind of a Tennessee accent, and I had a graduate student who had a really great Tennessee accent. I was in Tennessee teaching, and that person. I guess his voice is in there, and then the other character. Well, that's the Martin Short character, Steve Martin character is just the voice, the actual person. Oh, yeah, okay. This is interesting question that you've asked me here because I hadn't really thought of this. Raven is my daughter. That's her name. It's not her. It's the name she gave herself. So that's one. Let's see, who else? Oh, well, Carmen was a good friend of mine. Let's see, who else? This is funny. Yeah,
Yes,
so there's connections.
yes, absolutely. Is your wife a character?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, I have a few more questions, but let's read a little bit from this book. So before we started recording, I literally just flipped open to a page in the book. And I flipped open to chapter 13, the first page of chapter 13, called The Transformation. So if you don't mind, if you could just read the first paragraph.
I
And
can. I can, and I got to tell you something.
okay,
You believe you don't believe in coincidences. You're like me. You don't believe in coincidences. Things happen because, right?
I believe that everything coincides with either what you're doing or where you are or
Well,
what you're going to do.
right. And so you do know that what this paragraph is that you're about to have me read.
Um,
It is it is a paragraph that I gave to my wife that she didn't like.
no, it's not.
What's, what
No,
are the odds? You just picked it up and opened it that page, right?
you saw me do it.
I know.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
Wait till I tell my husband this.
Are you now convinced? If you weren't before.
So this is the paragraph that you told me about that you wrote.
It's what got me started. Like I
Right.
said, it appears pretty much in the middle of the book.
Yes. And I remember you saying that too, but you just now dropped that reveal that this was the paragraph that you wrote for it. Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. This is it. It's no joke. Enough to make a grown man cry, eh?
Yes, it is. And I'm holding back the tears, honestly, because I am one to cry. My husband will tell you. Okay, why don't you read this paragraph? And then after you read the paragraph, because you told me about the history of this paragraph while we were not recording, but I think it's an amazing story that people should hear. So why don't we read this and then you can tell us about it?
Oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. It's in chapter 13. The title of that chapter is called The Transformation. Starts out. Dreams are usually colorless, nonsensical, blurry, confusing, and hard to remember. At first, Sally's dreams were like that, out of focus. Black and white images changed right before her eyes. Things started out normal enough, with Sally lying there looking up at the sky. But then the blanket began to rock back and forth and rising into the air along with surrounding trees and houses. It was as though the bits and pieces of the valley had learned to fly. But the trees were the oddest things. They glided on the breeze with their roots trailing behind. The long branches of hundreds of willows waved at Sally, with an entire orange grove leading the way, marching along like a regiment of soldiers going off to battle. As the willows and the orange grove faded from view, Mr. and Mrs. Martin passed by nonchalantly, as though they had flown in this manner all their lives.
I think that paragraph is quite poetic.
Well, thank you. I thought so too.
And your wife said no. Well, okay. Well, first of all, before you go into that paragraph in the history while you wrote it, do you write poetry?
Do I have who?
Do you write poetry?
Poetry, no. Well, I did. I did one.
Oh.
When I was, I think I was, let's see, I was 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
And it goes like this.
Okay.
The wind was blowing very hard. It blew my head across the yard. That's it.
That's cute. That's very cute. Yeah, I asked because this paragraph is quite poetic. And okay, so tell us how this paragraph came about, who it was for, and the whole to-do.
Okay, well, my wife and I, we went with 2 other couples, 3 canoes, on a trip down the Colorado River from Palo Verde all the way to Yuma, and it was a 4-day trip. And we started on this trip right when Hurricane Linda had shown up. It was the most powerful hurricane to brush by the California coast ever. Unfortunately, it just happened to brush by, but we caught the kind of the edges of it. And so it made quite a mess in Palo Verde, where we were camping before we took off. And that got us off to a roaring start, let's say, with all the lightning and thunder that came with it. And it had the benefit of having cooled off the already very hot 105-degree temperatures that were going on. And we had this wonderful trip down the river, and some magical things happened. We got to this one place. I'll just go into it a little bit because it's really fun. That it was a campsite we got to, and it had a little bit of grass, and so we camped on the grass, and everything was going along fine. We went in our tents, went to sleep, and then we hear all this chomping going on, and there were 2 horses eating the grass outside our tent. And one of the horses began to wheeze, and it sounded like it might be getting sick. Well, this horse finally just collapsed in a heap right in front of our tent. And so I opened the tent to look out, and the horse's rear end is right in my face. And just as I open the tent, I'll let you use your imagination for what happened. It, 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 it released a lot of air and noise in my face. And so I got out of the tent and chased the horses away. So that was that night. Then we got to the second night and we got to this beautiful spot. It had a big rock on the other side of the river. And when we got there, it had a strange odor. It was not too unpleasant. It was just strange. And there was a buzz that sounded like high tension wires over our head. And looked up, and what it was a cloud of dragonflies. They were just swarming over us. Well, it wasn't long before we found out why the dragonflies were there. Because we got attacked by mosquitoes, and the dragonflies were eating the mosquito larvae. And so we were going to have dinner, but we never had dinner because the mosquito attack was horrendous. Every 20 minutes, the larvae in the river were hatching new mosquitoes. And it was just one drove of mosquitoes after another. So we got into our tents, and by then there were plenty of mosquitoes in the tent. So there was a lot of slapping going on with a lot of blood stains all over the tent. And we finally got enough mosquitoes out, went to sleep, or tried to. As we were sleeping, we hear this and it's frogs, right? Bullfrogs. And so we wake up to that. And then we hear the braying of the wild jackass. We were surrounded by these wild jackass, or donkeys, I guess they are. And that's why the smell was there, because they camped in that area. And then as we were drifting off, there was huge splashing going on as big fish started jumping in the river. It was just one thing after another. The coyotes were howling next. And then finally, we get to go to sleep. And then we hear, "Mama, Mama, Mama." And I thought, oh my God, there's a baby out there. I don't know what to do. And then it's quiet and we wait and nothing happens again. Well, we're not going to go out and look because I wouldn't know where to look. But anyway, the next day we go down and we end up at a place where there's a ranger, and the ranger is there. We ask him, do you know what that was? And he says, oh yeah, it wasn't a person, it was a beaver. Baby beavers sound like babies. I didn't know that. Anyway, we finally get down to Yuma, and it's 105 at midnight. We were going to get nice cold showers in Yuma because they had hot and cold running water in Yuma. Well, they didn't have hot and cold running water. They had hot and hot running water. So we didn't have we just had hot showers, and we were hot. It was hot. It was just, we were just sweating the whole way. So we couldn't even stay on our mattresses. We kept sliding off with the sweat. Finally, waking up in the morning, there's this beautiful sunrise, and I was blessed. And I was so blessed, I woke up my wife, who was not very happy with waking her up at 5 in the morning. But anyway, that was that trip. As a result of that trip, my wife was so enthralled with the whole thing that she just started to write a story called Linda and the Chocolate Mountains, because we had just passed by the Chocolate Mountains. And it was a great story. It was about a little Indian girl, and it was really wonderful. And then she got to a point with writer's block. And so I wrote that little paragraph and gave it to her, thinking that it was a good bridging paragraph for her because it kind of fit her story. And she didn't like it. So I got the paragraph back and I started writing, and there it went. That's how Sally and the Magic River happened.
Wow. And it's also funny how that paragraph is the first paragraph in a chapter called The Transformation, because that paragraph kind of is the transformation from one
Mhm.
story to from your wife's story to yours.
Oh, it's a big transformation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of surprises in this book. I think if you read it without spoils, the spoil alert stuff, you stay away from that. You'll be surprised at how it all turns out.
Right. And you also included some pictures in the back. Why don't you tell us a little bit about these pictures and why you included these?
Okay. Well, the first picture here is of the bedtime animals that Sally has with her, and they represent the characters in the book. There are five characters. There's the coyote, um, Carmen. There's the rabbit Fidget, and the squirrel Gabby, and the crow Sarah, and the goose Gandor.
Hmm.
Gandor is a very wise goose.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is Sally's menagerie that she sleeps with, and you could see why a girl might connect in her dreams to something that she plays with every night when she goes to sleep, and so that's why those are there. And then we come to this canoe. This is Sally's canoe, and this is another one of those things. You know how the right thing shows up at the right time. I had the idea that Sally would be in a wooden canoe. I didn't know what kind of canoe. I didn't know anything about canoes, but this has happened. There's a company in below San Diego here near the border called Sega Canoes, and we went down that area for tortillas because it's near Mexico, and we passed by this Sega Canoe, which I didn't know was there. So, well, let's just go look, because I was in the midst of writing Sally and the Magic River at the time. And so I go in, and there's this canoe hanging off the shelf. This is a mahogany and ash C1 racing canoe. And it is one of the main characters in the book. The name of this canoe is Amber, and this is Sally's canoe. She was given this canoe by her grandfather, and her grandfather is very much like my own grandfather. My grandfather lives in Santa Paula, actually did. So does Sally's. Sally's grandfather lives in Santa Paula, so there's a lot of connections there. This is a cataract. A lot of people don't know what a cataract is. So I went to Sega Canoe, or not, Saturn Canoes, Saturn Rafts rather, and talked to the manager there, or the owner, and asked him if I could use his picture to show people what a cataract looks like. And he says, "Oh, sure, that'd be great." So he has a copy of this book. The president of Saturn Rafts has a copy of this book. I sent it to him. And this is a rafting team. Now, one of the things that goes on in Magic River is she goes on this whitewater adventure, and she has a team who follow her in a whitewater raft like this. It's called a paddle and oar raft. You can see the paddles in the back. In the back, the guy in the oar is running the oar. He's the one that's in the stern. Now, this picture here is of a man. His name is Boomer. Actually, taking he doesn't have a canoe, but he has a kayak. And this is the kind of thing he does. And if you want to see some interesting videos, you go on YouTube and you see Boomer taking his canoe over waterfalls. Well, this is another one of those coincidences. See, I wrote about Sally taking her canoe over a waterfall. I had no idea people actually did that. But when I was in Colorado visiting my daughter, while I was writing this book, we go into a ski shop. And on the wall of the ski shop is a picture. And in this picture, there is a picture of, not this one, but a similar one, of Boomer going over a waterfall. I said, oh my God, people actually do this? Well, I contacted Boomer and I got permission to use this picture of him launching his canoe over the waterfall. And if you are on YouTube, you'll see Boomer actually doing it live. And that's quite amazing. So I think that's it.
That sounds quite amazing. I think that's something that I want to see. That's quite amazing. So where can everyone get in touch with you, find out more about your book and the books that you have coming out after this?
Well, is there a possibility they could get in touch with you, or let's see,
Absolutely.
that'd be one way.
Okay.
How other way? Oh, another way would be to go to my website. It's
Mhm.
called sallysmagicriver.com.
Okay. That's easy to remember. sallysmagicriver.com.
Right.
And of course, you can come into Hidden Gems Literary Emporium, 55B Morris Street, New Brunswick, New Jersey. Anything else that you would like to say before we conclude this interview?
Well, no, I think, I'll just point out that if you can see behind me here,
Yes. I was
that's
going
me.
to.
My daughter made that picture for me. Brainy guy, right?
Yes. And that's you in the center of your collection of comic books, correct?
Well, they're actually, it's called pulp fiction.
Yes. Okay.
Way back in the day, they had a lot of these pulp fiction books. They cost 25 cents.
Wow.
Nowadays, those same books that I have on the wall, they're each one may be worth at least $50. Some of
Wow.
them are in the hundreds of dollars. Kind of a
Wow.
crazy thing.
Yes.
But it reminds me of my youth and it keeps me young.
And it's very cool.
I'm still a 10-year-old. That's the other thing that's really cool about having something bad happen to you. You don't ever age mentally.
Wow. That's
So there's some good things that come out of the bad stuff that's going on with kids right now, and they just need to know that it isn't over yet, and it's really, life can be wonderful, and that this tragedy could end up being the best thing that ever happened to him. So my father dying actually ends up in a very strange way being the best thing that ever happened to me.
Wow. I think you have, and you were a teacher of hundreds of students in your life. And so I think that you have a lot to share with the youth that can, inspire them through hard times and, reinvigorate the youth with imagination and creativity again and get them, writing, reading, creating their own stories. There's no reason why the youth cannot be authors, no matter what age they're in.
Exactly.
We have authors that we know who are under the age of 13 who have books published, and they're great books. And so why can't that be a possibility?
Oh, definitely. It's one of the things that I have learned is that there isn't any reason to wait until you get old,
Right.
to be doing stuff that adults do.
And that you love to do.
And probably do better because your brain is sharper.
Right.
You just need to use it.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you and the work that you do. Please, everyone, come by Hidden Gems Literary Emporium at 55B Morris Street in New Brunswick, New Jersey, or give us a call, 609-361-4331. If you would like to order a copy of this book, we will ship it to your house. Please share this video with anyone who you think needs to hear it. And we love you for reading. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kylie.
Talk to you soon.
I hope so.
Okay, bye-bye.